People were wondering, a lot of people will say, well, what kind of diet should I go on? There's so many popular diets. Which one should I go on? Blah, 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 blah. Following a whole food version of the USDA diet, meaning eating what the USDA says, but only whole foods, nothing refined, that's a good start. But there are other diets, and some of them have their strong points, and some of them have their weak points. But what you'll find out is most diets that work have the same thing in common. They're diets that favor a lot of vegetables, okay, a lot of whole foods in general, okay, and they favor a lot of lean proteins or are relatively high protein, but generally speaking, it's a whole food, plant-centered diet. Almost every diet that's successful, in fact, every diet I know of that's actually successful, is centered around plants, those plants usually being vegetables, okay? It's very rare that I've ever seen a diet centered around fruits. But this is a study that compares various popular diets, Atkins, DASH, glycemic index, the Mediterranean diet, Dean Ornish's diet, the Paleolithic diet, and the Zone diet. Okay? So, let's get into the diets first and foremost. This is just how the study was performed. Clinical trials that met their preset criteria, blah, 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 blah. So let's see what they found with the Atkins diet. 10 clinical trials ranging in duration from 3 months to 24 months were identified for the Atkins diet for brevity and clarity. The findings from all 10 of these clinical trials are summarized in Figure 2AB, which is above. 9 of the 10 clinical trials supported the ability of the Atkins diet to produce clinically meaningful short-term weight loss, and 6 of the 8 long-term clinical trials supported the effectiveness. So it's over half. So you have to remember this. So all 10 of the clinical trials supported the Atkins diet in the short term, and 6 of the 8 long-term, so well over half, clinical trials supported the effectiveness of the diet for long-term weight control. Dietary approach to stop hypertension, which is the DASH diet. This was a diet created by the American Heart Association. It favors a lot of whole foods, okay? So, one short-term clinical trial was available for the DASH diet. In this clinical trial, conducted by the Blumenthal et al., whatever, blah, blah, blah. So, with blood pressure, After 4 months, participants in the DASH diet alone group maintained their weight with an average of weight change of 0.3%. Participants' dietary energy was 19.4%, protein, so that's the total calories. Okay, so protein 53.8%, carbohydrate 27.8%. Like glycemic index diet, so this would be like a zone-style diet. Well, no, it's not quite. It's eating foods that are lower on the glycemic index, so it's not like the zone diet because the macros aren't managed. 2 short-term and long-term clinical trials were available for the glycemic index diet. This is what's favored by Dirk Pearson and Sandy Shaw, if you read Dirk Pearson and Sandy Shaw's weight loss book. So, assigned to the low glycemic diet for 18 months and found that the low glycemic diet produced an average weight loss of 4.3% after 6 months, 2.9% after 12 months. Okay, so that's pretty decent. What I'm pointing out here is all of these diets work. Okay, the Mediterranean diet, 1 short-term and 2 long-term clinical trials were available for the Mediterranean diet. Okay. After 12 months, the traditional Mediterranean diet produced an average weight loss of 8.7%. That's really good. And the low-carbohydrate Mediterranean diet produced an average weight loss of 10.3%. Okay, that's excellent. So by cutting the carbs, but keeping the protein and the fats high, you can lose even more weight in the short term. Additionally, conducted study randomized that followed the Mediterranean diet for 1 year. Participants' mean weight loss was 7.2% after 3 months, 4.9% after 12 months. So obviously it looks like the Mediterranean diet is the winner. So the Ornish diet, 2 short and long-term clinical trials were available for the Ornish diet. This is a low-fat, high carbohydrate, moderate protein diet. So the Ornish diet produced an average weight loss of 3.5% after 6 months, after 12 months, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it doesn't look that great for weight loss per se. However, the Ornish diet is used to reverse heart disease. So, overweight or obese menopausal, okay. The Paleolithic diet. 1 short-term and 1 long-term clinical trial were available for the Paleolithic diet. Okay, that's not great for the meta-analysis. But the Paleolithic diet provided 30% of daily energy intake from protein, 40% from fats, and 30% from carbohydrates. The Paleolithic diet produced an average weight loss of 9%. That's very good. And after 6 months, 10.6%. That's extremely good. The Zone diet. 1 short-term and 2 long-term clinical trials were available for the Zone diet, which recommends 30% of calories come from protein, 30% from fats, and 40% from carbohydrates. Now, mind you, none of these calories actually control for calories, except for, I believe, the Ornish diet, I think, is the only one that actually controls for calories, like total calories. The rest of these don't count. The Zone diet does count calories, but you're actually counting macros, which will count your calories for you. It's a different way of counting calories by counting macros. Okay. So, but it's still another way of counting calories. After 6 months, because you have to remember, for every gram of protein, so 30% of your diet is protein, 30% is fat, and 40% is carbohydrate on the Zone diet. So obviously you're still counting calories because there's 4 calories in a gram of protein, 4 calories in a gram of carbohydrate, and 9 calories in a gram of fat. After 6 months, participants in the Zone diet group lost approximately 7.4% of their baseline weight. Okay, okay. In the long-term study, okay, after 6 months, 12 months, blah blah blah, 1.8%. So that's not that great in the long term, but good in the short term. Not great, but good. The purpose of this review was to examine the clinical evidence supporting the effectiveness of current popular diets that did not include specific calorie targets. Okay, so none of these actually had specific calorie targets. I thought Ornish may have. Meal replacements, supplementation with commercial products, and or structured exercise programs. So what you have to understand is none of these require you to count calories. None of them require you to use meal replacements. And none of them require supplementation with commercial products or structured exercise programs, but yet they produce these results alone. Okay, so keep that in mind. All of the diets work. The findings of this review are not in line with the current recommendations of the dietary guidelines, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Although a recent meta-analysis, critical question related to which popular diet, which popular diet is most effective for producing weight loss? What are the potential mechanisms? Yada, yada, yada. Some diet advocates, Atkins, assert that limiting carbohydrate consumption is the primary driver of weight loss, while others argue that restriction of specific macronutrients could lead to a reduction of total calorie intake. And that's true. But the point is, all of these diets favor whole foods. Okay, that's the one thing they all have in common, despite vast differences in macronutrient composition. So this is a comparison of Atkins, Ornish, Weight Watchers, and the Zone diet. So, result, assuming no change from... Now, Weight Watchers does encourage whole food consumption, but it's not mandatory. And that's a problem. Okay, that's a problem. But results, no change, assuming no change from baseline for participants who discontinued the study, blah, blah, blah. Okay, greater effects were observed in study completers. Each diet significantly reduced low-density lipoprotein. So each diet significantly reduced cholesterol, the bad cholesterol. Okay. And high-density cholesterol ratio by approximately 10%, with no significant effects on blood pressure or glucose at 1 year. Amount of weight loss was associated with self-reported dietary adherence, but not with diet type. So keep that in mind. The amount of lost weight was reported with dietary adherence to any one of these diets, but not with the diet type. Each popular diet modestly reduced body weight and several cardiac risk factors at 1 year. Overall dietary adherence rates were low, although increased adherence was associated with greater weight loss and cardiac risk factor reductions. So as I went over earlier, a lot of the phytonutrients, I think it was a different series of videos though, but different phytonutrients result in the delaying of aging, but those same phytonutrients show great results with the treatment of things like schizophrenia. Now, before I continue, I want to remind people, I'm not a physician, I'm not a DO, I'm not an MD, I'm not an ND, I'm not a chiropractor, I'm not a nurse, I'm not an LPN, I'm not an RN, I'm not a nurse practitioner, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian. So aging, and particularly the onset of age-related diseases, are associated with tissue dysfunction and macromolecular damage. Some of which can be attributed to the accumulation of oxidative damage. Recently, a growing interest has emerged on the beneficial effects of plant-based diets for the prevention of chronic diseases, including obesity, diabetes, and cardiovascular diseases. Several studies collectively suggest that the intake of polyphenols and their major food sources may exert beneficial effects on improving insulin resistance, related to diabetes risk factors such as inflammation, oxidative stress. They are the most abundant antioxidants in the diet, and their intake has been associated with a reduced aging in humans. Polyphenolic intake has been shown to be effective at ameliorating several age-related phenotypes, including oxidative stress, inflammation, impaired proteostasis, and cellular senescence, both in vitro and in vivo. In the paper that is not here, this is an abstract, but in the paper, effects of these phytochemicals, either in their pure form or their polyphenolic form, or as in food, are reviewed and summarized. Okay, so let's see what we got going on here. Polyphenol subclass. Okay, these are some of the things that are useful. So there's catechin, which is in cocoa, green tea, apple, peaches, and barley. Quercetin in capers, red onion, radicchio, chokeberry, and cranberry. Apigenin in celery, broccoli, green pepper, parsley, thyme, chamomile tea, peppermint, and rosemary. Flavones in grapefruit, orange, and citrus fruits, and the peels. Lignans in sesame seeds, grains, brassica vegetables. Isoflavones in lupine fava and lupine fava beans and soybeans. Anthocyanins, and whatever, these are in blackberries, blueberries, black grape, cherry, strawberry, and plums. Remember, how do chimpanzees eat? Chimpanzees eat a lot of what? They eat a lot of fruits and leaves and plants. So still beans, which are in grapes, blueberry, raspberry, mulberries. Phenolic acids in coffee, peaches, prunes, olive oil. Hydrobenzoic acids, ellagic acid, and vanillic acid in berries, onions, horseradish, and pomegranate. Others, curcumin, which is in turmeric. Okay. So this is showing how it works. It increases genomic stability, and it decreases the main hallmarks of aging. Okay. So this is how aging works. And it reasserts these things. So what happens is you lose genomic stability You lose your epigenetic, you get epigenetic distortion, you get mitochondrial dysfunction, altered intercellular communication, lowered sperm activity, deregulated nutrient sensing, stem cell exhaustion, telomere shortening, loss of proteostasis, meaning protein balance, imbalanced metabolism, and cellular senescence, meaning age or the death of cells. And what this does is polyphenols decrease these by reducing these hallmarks of aging. Moving. So polyphenol food intake helps to protect against these things. It protects against neurodegenerative diseases. It protects against cardiovascular diseases. It protects against the dysbiosis of the microbiome. It protects against type 2 diabetes. It protects against liver disease, and it has an anti-cancer effect, which results in younger humans. And that's all for this video.